Lily didn't become a legend the day she was born. She became one the night a dragon died in her arms, and the snow stopped obeying the sky. The village of HFY sat quiet at the foot of the Dragonstooth Mountains, the kind of place where nothing truly new ever happened. Lily was used to that. She was a healer's apprentice, hands always smelling of crushed mint and yarrow, fingers always stained green from grinding herbs, days spent wrapping scraped knees and simmering cough syrup while elders complained about the weather, a predictable life, until the day the horizon caught fire. It started as a distant glow's onset, she thought, until the sky turned the color of bleeding embers. Then came the sound, not thunder, not wind, something older, like the world's bones cracking. People ran into the streets, pointing, screaming. A shadow tore through the clouds, trailing flaming debris, and then the dragon fell, not near the village. Square like a monster in a story, no, it crashed into the forest beyond the river, breaking ancient pines like twigs. The impact shook HFY hard enough to rattle cups from shelves and knock prayer charms off doorframes. Don't go, her mentor shouted as villagers gathered torches. Dragons don't fall for mercy, they fall for hunger. But Lily wasn't thinking about hunger, she was thinking about the sound. She heard under the roar the sound of pain while the rest of HFY hesitated. Lily grabbed a satchel of salves and bandages and ran into the trees. The forest was burning in patches, but the dragon wasn't rampaging. It lay half buried in splintered wood, its massive body heaving in shallow breaths. Twilight-colored scales cracked open like broken glass. Wounds ran along its ribs, too clean, too precise, like someone had carved them with a weapon that knew exactly where to cut. And the blood, gold, not like coins, like sunrise poured into the dirt. The dragon's eye cracked open, ancient and intelligent, and fixed on her as if it had been waiting. Lily's knees nearly buckled. Every instinct screamed to flee. Instead, she stepped closer. I'm not here to hurt you, she whispered, voice shaking. I can help if you let me. The dragon's nostrils flared. Its breath smelled like ash and rain. It didn't lunge. It just watched. So Lily worked. She cleaned the golden blood with trembling hands, packed crushed moss into deep gaches, whispered every calming prayer she knew. When her voice cracked, she sang lullabies her mother used to hum when storms made her afraid. The dragon didn't understand the words, but it understood the intention. For 3 days and 3 nights, Lily barely slept. She dragged water from the river, fed the dragon herbs meant for fever and pain, laughable for something this vast, but she had nothing else. Every few hours the dragon shuddered, and Lily feared the end was coming, and still she stayed. On the 3rd night, a storm slammed into HFY, wind tearing at shutters, lightning clawing the mountain peaks. Lily had managed somehow to get the dragon into the shelter of a small cottage by the forest edge, its bulk curling around the house like a living wall. She sat by its head, palm pressed against warm scales that should have been cold. You need a name, she murmured, half delirious. Something that means you're not just a fear. The dragon's eye blinked slowly. Ignis, she decided. Fire. The dragon's gaze softened, not like a pet, not like a beast, but like a tired king allowing a child to speak. Then Ignis released a low, rumbling sigh that made the lamps flicker. He nudged her hand with his enormous snout, and warmth in overwhelming flooded into her like she had swallowed a star. Lily gasped, eyes wide, lungs burning. The cottage shook, or a heartbeat. She saw something that wasn't the room at all. A sky full of constellations moving like living things, a mountain of bones, a spear made of green-lit metal plunging into twilight scales. Then the vision snapped away. Ignis exhaled one sob, almost gentle, and went still. Lily screamed. She clutched his face, pressing her forehead to his scales as tears poured down. The storm outside howled as if it were morning too. Her grief was sharp enough to split her ribs, but the warmth inside her didn't fade. It coiled under her skin, alive. Hours later, when her shaking hands knocked over a cauldron of water, Lily didn't just get soaked. The water froze mid-spill. It hung in the air like a crystal sculpture, perfectly suspended, droplets glittering in lamplight. Lily stared at it, breath trapped in her throat. No, she whispered out. Her fingers twitched. The frozen droplets rotated slow. Obedient. Dragon magic. News traveled faster than grief ever could by morning. Riders had already carried whispers down the trade roads. A great dragon had fallen near HFY, a dragon with twilight scales, a dragon with golden blood, and in the neighboring kingdom, a man who ruled by iron and cruelty listened with hungry delight. Lord Malachor, a tyrant with black banners, cold eyes, and a long obsession with power. For years he'd sent hunters into the mountains, returning with broken spears and empty hands. Dragons were rare, no vanishing hiding, dying, but this one had fallen, and Malachor didn't believe in accidents. His scouts arrived at Ashford like shadows, black iron armor, faces hidden, horses snorting steam. They didn't ask permission, they took doors off hinges. They ripped up floorboards. They demanded to see the dragon's corpse. They found Lily first. They noticed the frost that curled around her breath even indoors, the way the air shimmered when her emotions spiked, the unnatural stillness that followed her like the world was holding its breath. They didn't see a grieving girl. They saw a weapon. That night, Lily packed a small bag. Her hand shook so badly she could barely tie the strap. She kissed her parents' foreheads as they slept, whispering apologies she didn't have time to explain. Then she fled into the dark, carrying Ignis inside her like a second heartbeat. For weeks she ran. When fear surged, the ground trembled. When anger fled, snowstorms blossomed in places that had never seen snow. Once, cornered by wolves, Lily raised her hands in panic, and a shield of blinding light burst around her, sending the pack yelping into the trees. She couldn't control it. Not fully. She hid in forgotten valleys and ruined what practiced in secret, desperate not to become the very danger Malachor wanted her to be. She learned to pull heat from sunlight, shaping it into warmth to survive freezing nights. She learned the wind carried whispers, fragments of distant voices, warnings on the air, and sometimes when she closed her eyes she felt Ignis not as a voice, as a presence, a steady, ancient patience beneath her fear. Eventually the whispers led her to a place that wasn't on any map, a monastery carved into a cliffside hidden behind a waterfall that fell like silver curtains. The monks there wore no weapons and spoke with signs instead of words. Their silence, so complete it felt sacred. They didn't flinch when Lily arrived, trembling, half-frozen eyes glowing faint gold. They bowed. Their leader, an old man named Kale, approached with careful reverence. "You carry him?" Kale said softly, voice like dry leaves. Lily's throat tightened. "He died." Kale's gaze held grief and fury at once. He was murdered, inside the monastery, by candlelight and carved stone. Kale told Lily the truth. Malachor had forged a spear from a fallen starforged metal that drank life itself. It could pierce dragon hide like parchment. It didn't just wound, it stole. Ignis hadn't crashed by chance. He had flown to Ashford with his last strength because he needed someone Malachor would never suspect. Someone kind. Someone who would care for a dying creature when the world told her to run. "He chose you," Kale said. "Not for power, for mercy." The monks trained her brutally. Meditation on ice-capped peaks until she learned to command her own body heat. Sparring drills with monks who moved like wine, teaching her discipline so her emotions didn't become disasters. Ancient draconic texts, a language of intent and feeling more than sound. Slowly, the frightened village girl began to fade. In her place stood someone else, still Lily. Still human, but carrying responsibility like armor. Then the monasteries. Wards screamed. Now Whitsun Lily felt it in her bones, a vibrating dread. The waterfall's mist turned to ice. The candles flared green. Malachor had found him. He arrived at the mountain gate with an army like an endless black tide. At his side, the starforged spear glowed sickly green, humming with something hungry. "The dragon girl," Malachor called, voice magnified by sorcery, "and I will leave the rest alive." The monks formed a silent wall. They refused. Malachor laughed like grinding stone and ordered the attack. The battle was chaos. Monks danced through soldiers, striking pressure points, disarming blades, moving like flowing water, but the enemy was a legion, and the spear tore through defenses as if the world itself wanted it to win. Each time it struck stone, the rock blackened. Each time it struck flesh, the wound didn't bleed, it withered. Lily watched a monk fall, eyes wide, reaching for her as if to say, "Run." Something inside her snapped. Not rage, clarity. The time for hiding was over. Lily walked through the gate alone. Storm gathered above her as if answering a call. Dust lifted from the ground. The air crackled with elemental tension. Her eyes glowed gold, the same gold that once wept from Ignis's wounds. Malachor smiled. "There you are. You're just a child," he sneered, raising the spear. "Playing with forces you can't comprehend." Lily's voice didn't sound like her own when she answered. "I am not a child," the wind rose. "I am the heir of Ignis." The earth rumbled, "and I am his justice." Malachor lunged. The spear struck toward her heart. Lily didn't draw a weapon. She raised her hands and became the storm. The ground erupted. swallowing ranks of soldiers and twisting walls of stone. A hurricane burst from her breath, tossing siege engines like toys. Ice formed in midair as jagged spears, then melted into rain that burned with sunlight. Malicor's spear carved through it all, green glow hissing against nature's fury. Finally, he drove forward with a desperate scream and thrust the starforged spear straight at her. Lily caught it, her fingers wrapped around cosmic metal that screamed to devour her. Pain exploded up her arms. The spear's green light surged, trying to drink her life. But it meant something it didn't expect. Hygienist, not a corpse, not a memory, a soul intertwined with hers, dragon fire and dragon balance, ancient and unyielding. For a heartbeat, Lily saw Ignis again standing beside her in a sky of stars. Not dying now, but watching. Hold, the presence seemed to say. Lily inhaled and released a torrent of pure life energy, not destruction, not hatred, but the raw, bright force of the living world. Sunlight, soil, roots, rain, growth. The spear shuddered, its sickly green glow flickered like a candle in a hurricane. Eyes widened. No, a blinding light swallowed them both. When it faded, Malicor was gone, crumbled into dust that scattered on the wind like ash. The spear lay on the ground, dull and lifeless, just metal now. Silence returned. Lily stood trembling as the storm subsided, breathing hard, feeling the monastery behind her, wounded but alive. She had won, but she understood something now. Victory wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of a road. Other tyrants would rise, other darknesses would creep from forgotten places. But Lily would not face them alone. She carried the monk's wisdom, her village's love, and the burning, balanced strength of a dragon's soul. She was proof that true power isn't found in a crown or a weapon, but in the courage to kneel beside a dying creature and choose compassion when the world chooses fear. And that is a power no tyrant can ever defeat. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this tale, hit like, subscribe, and join us for more stories from worlds beyond our own. See you next time.